My talk today is about choosing colour and the complex relationship of creating and visualising and organising colours. And following on from John McCann's fascinating talk last week, which was incredibly useful in exploring and defining crucial terms, including sensation, perception, and our assumptions we make about the world. As artists, we are instinctively drawn to colours, and in some cases return to these over and again. As designers, we need to be able to present colour palettes and translate these between media. As scientists, we need to accurately specify colour. Nature has its own way of displaying and organising colour. Today I'm looking out into my garden, and it's packed with a multiple of shades of green. These hues are not static over the seasons and will change according to the light and through the influence of the weather. Lastly, collecting and printing colour has been a lifelong fascination. I've been collecting paint charts for several years and have a collection of extraordinary colour palettes, manufacturers and colour names spanning 150 years. I've also been collecting colours from the real world, #colour-a-day. Obviously, there is a difference between flat painted colour and colour as it appears in context in photos and in the real world. But how to bridge the gap between colours we perceive around us and codifying and arranging colours as a chart or as a colour space or defining it as a colour name is certainly complex. Ask someone what human vision is good for and you will probably get an answer about recognising faces, things or places. Not many will tell you that vision is about recognising texture, and it is the surface or micro qualities of a material which can be just as important as objects. And this understanding of recognising texture enables us to identify whether something may do us harm, provide comfort or pleasure, or is good to eat. We also know that colour is a property of light falling on objects, the spectral power distribution reflected by a colour at each visible wavelength, the visual processing systems in our brain, and individual human experiences of colour as a subjective psychological phenomenon. For example, a yellow banana is yellow because it absorbs other wavelengths and reflects only yellow. Its yellowness may only appear different depending on the illumination. Furthermore, we know the banana is not uniformly yellow. If all objects were made of only one material, and that material was smooth and uniform, then our world would be very dull. Our world involves recognising a myriad of materials, and over time we build up a library of knowledge that enables us to differentiate between similar and nuanced materials such as hair, fur or feathers, and quite without the need to identify its object. Choosing and naming colours and making accurate translation is a necessity for artists, designers and scientists, but we may go about it in different ways. We may be inspired by objects and nature and need to reproduce these in some way, but how to choose that specific colour or arrive at colour harmonies that are relevant for the job? A good deal of materials in the real world are influenced by a number of factors. By the light falling on the surface, how the light is reflected and scattered in many directions, the microstructure of the texture and subsurface scattering, and what we assume we know about the relationship between the object and its texture. If we take this image, we know that this is a tree with orange blossom on a sunny day. We know this because of the shadows, the dynamic range of the colours, and the hint of the blue sky behind. We can say that the image is composed of three colours, maybe a yellow-orange blossom, a dark green of the leaves, and a pale blue sky. Yet we know that in order to reproduce this image faithfully, there are many other colours. Therefore, colour without a texture is pretty much a paint chart, and from this flat rendering with just the three colours, there is a significant loss of detail and a flattening of surface. If we were to go to a paint shop with a swatch that closely matched the yellow-orange blossom, what colour would we choose? Now, I appreciate this may be a boring subject for many, but please stay with me for the next few minutes, as by the end of this time, I'm certain that you will look at these colour charts in a new light, and no pun intended. So when did you last buy paint? Can you recall how nervous or excited your paint purchase made you feel at the point of making that final commitment? But what colour to choose? Who has not been tempted by a paint name such as Hellebore or Tivoli, who has run a finger over the colour cards or snatched out a few swatches just for the simple pleasure to take them home? Choosing colour can be an expensive process for consumers, and suppliers need to ensure customer confidence. And the marketing of paint to a DIY market since the mid-20th century has been fundamental in reaching out to consumers, maintaining their loyalty through design and branding, as well as the reliability and consistency of paint. Colour can be defined numerically. It can be codified and translated between colour spaces. And these are just a few of the many colour examples but these are relevant for artists and designers. So moving from left to right and clockwise, the Pantone Color is a reference guide for colour matching different materials, and as a way of visually matching colours to CMYK colour formulations for mixing spot colours. The Munsell Color, developed by Professor Albert H. Munsell, is an American colour system similar to Pantone. Colours are arranged according to 3 properties of colour. So hue, basic colour, chroma, intensity, and value, light to dark. James Clerk Maxwell, with the use of his spinning discs loaded with different colour ratios, was able to develop the first colour space. Moses Harris was interested in the natural system of colours as a pragmatic way of matching colours in the world for maintaining consistency in mixing watercolours for his book illustrations of flowers and insects. William Ostwald, a painter, noted there were more green hues in the world, and in his analysis on colour harmony, he extended the colour palette to include 4 primaries: yellow, red, blue, and a bluish green. The CIE 1931 colour space is a quantitative approach to plotting colour relationships based on colour wavelengths and how colours are perceived by humans. This is important for colour management for printing, computer monitors, and other display systems such as projectors or cameras. The system was designed in 1931, and CIE is known in English as the International Commission on Illumination. Michel Eugene Chevreul was interested in the laws of simultaneous contrast, how colours influenced each other colours when placed next to each other. He was influential in considering the formulation of colours inside our brains. A further development is the Cie Lab Color Space. It plots and defines colour according to 3 values: L star for lightness from black to white, A star from green to red, and B star from blue to yellow. This colour space is designed to approximate human vision. It is device independent, is useful for measuring colour differences, and it has a huge colour gamut that is larger than computer displays and printers, and therefore useful for the graphics industry and as a space for converting between RGB and CMYK colour models. The RGB Colour Space Atlas by Tauber Auerbach is a physical representation of the RGB colour space. It is printed as a 20 by 20 by 20 centimetre book, and as one flips through the pages, each page shows the shift towards each colour primary. Colour can be described as a colour expression, such as pillar box red, each with the intention to describe or specify a colour, but names for colours are not really that precise and relies on the other person knowing that a burgundy red is the same colour as the colour in your imagination. In some cases, the pigment terms used by paint manufacturers can be misleading and give scant indication as to the reflectance of the colour. A manufacturer might refer to a chemical colour such as permanent viridian green lake, or they might use a brand name such as Windsor Green. The possible range of colours that can be described is enormous, subtle, varied, and may reflect our cultural background, age, and experience. If the range of colours are limited, as demonstrated in the charts of the late 19th century, then this is less of a problem. But faced with a myriad of colours now available, then this can be an overwhelming experience. Paint has been transformed from an unobtrusive coating on the wall to an interior design choice and lifestyle statement. As exampled in a rebranding exercise by a UK household paint manufacturer in 1998, the aim was to understand the change in the domestic paint market. Their key insight into its consumers' choice was that they did not want paint, they wanted help with matching colours. Based on the possibility of living in a painted room that may be hideous, often led to a non-purchase or a delayed purchase or compromise. People needed help, colour help. The slogan for the manufacturer's paint matching advertisement was, "You find the colour, we'll match it." As indicated in this slide in the film, there are variables even to so-called flat colour. And when presented with an array of colour swatches, it is surprising we can still be uncertain about making colour matches. In general, humans are very picky. If you compare the colour swatch to the range of modulations in the colour caused by the surface texture or effects, such as weave, bumpiness or grain, or highlights and shadows, although the pink jacket demonstrates a wide range of highlights and shadows, we still perceive the colour to be pink. But which is the preferred pink for your wall? Returning to the Instagram Colour a Day snapshots as an inspiration, although the project is called Colour a Day, as you can see, some images are quite simple and graphic. Some present a dominant colour, and a lot are quite complex and demonstrate a range of colours. I asked Damien Leach to apply the algorithm he had made for a famous print, The Great Wave of Kanagawa. Here Damien has made a colour segmentation of the print, which now appears as a checkered image, and here you can see a complex palette of hues and tones. So we decided to take a range of the Instagram pictures and apply the algorithm to come up with other colour palettes. So here we have a 2-colour palette, a 3-colour palette, and another 3-colour palette. And what you can see here is the image on the left, a bar along the top which indicates the colour weighting, the swatches with the RGB values and their percentages, and also where these colours are plotted in a CIE colour space. Here is a colour palette of just the colours relating to the blossom. But what if we created a more complex colour set? Any number of colours can be generated. And all in all, these are more ideas for generating other colours. These could be certainly useful for making colour separations for printing, spot colours for designers, colour matching for new applications, or even as an inspiration for new colour harmonies, or as a paint chart for your next DIY project. My talk today has explored how humans are excellent at identifying colours and textures and building a library of knowledge. As artists, we are trained to observe the world and accurately transcribe what they see using pigments and render paintings in a dynamic range. Have certainly been doing this for centuries, and it is that quality about the ways of image making and that measuring devices and digital tools have yet to match. Thank you for listening.